This happened 2 weeks ago. It was my last night shift at the old hospital. I'd been a paramedic for over a decade, and the idea of closing this chapter made me feel nervous. The hospital was dark and quiet, with peeling paint on the walls. The silence was heavy, and it rang in my ears. I couldn't shake this feeling that something was off, that I wanted to document my experiences for my podcast. I thought it would be a good idea since the hospital closed soon. I made my way to the break room to set up my equipment. A flickering overhead light caught my eye. I heard echoes in the hallways, but I figured it was just my imagination. The chill in the air didn't help, but I brushed it off. As I set my backpack on the table, I noticed an old recording device covered in dust. Curiosity got the better of me, and I picked it up. I pressed play. Crackled to life, and I thought I heard a voice in the static. The words were jumbled, talking about patients from long ago. I felt uneasy, like I was listening to something I shouldn't. I checked my watch. The clock ticked loudly, and my heart started to race. That strange feeling grew, like someone was watching me. I took a deep breath to steady myself. Then, I heard a loud clang from outside the break room. It made me jump, and my heart raced. I peeked into the dim hallway, but nothing was there. Just darkness. I shook my head and went back to the recording. I pressed play again. Now, the voice sounded different, urgent. It mentioned a patient named Sarah who had gone missing. I felt a shiver run down my spine. I knew I shouldn't linger on this, but I couldn't help myself. Was it true? Moments later, I heard footsteps echoing down the hall. I stood up, drawn to the sound. I stepped into the corridor again, looking left and right. The lights above flickered wildly now, like they might go out completely. When I caught sight of her, a nurse in old-fashioned scrubs, her face pale and sad. I froze. "Help me," she whispered, and then she vanished. I bolted back to the break room, my heart pounding in my ears. I couldn't shake her face from my mind. Was I losing it? I sat down, trying to calm myself. Moments passed before I heard murmurs again, echoing through the stillness. Each word felt like a weight in the air. I don't know how long I sat there, but I knew I needed to leave. I stood up, ready to grab my things, when a shadow appeared in the corner of my eye. I turned, and there it was, the nurse, standing closer this time. "Why are you here?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Then I heard my name called softly from behind me. I turned, and there was nobody there. When I looked back, she was gone. I couldn't take it anymore. I ran, and everything went black. I still can't explain what happened in those last moments. The hospital closed days later, but I can't shake that night from my mind. I woke up in the hospital's break room, disoriented. The overhead light flickered weakly, and for a moment, I thought I was still dreaming. The recording device sat next to me, still crackling with static. I rubbed my eyes, not wanting to believe what had just happened. The nurse had vanished, the darkness had swallowed me whole, and now I was back alone. The clock on the wall read 2 in the morning. Felt like a cruel joke. I should have been more careful, but curiosity had gotten the best of me. I picked up the device, trying to steady my hands. Maybe I'd find something in the recordings that would explain what I had seen. As soon as I pressed play, the voice returned, slurred and broken. The words came clearer this time, each syllable heavy with a haunting urgency. "Sarah? It's cold. Please." I felt a chill creep back into my bones. Who was Sarah, and what had happened to her? I decided to leave the break room and explore the hospital. I needed answers, or at least the closure I craved. I stepped into the hallway, my footsteps echoing off the walls. Each creak sounded louder than the last, and that knot in my stomach returned. As I walked, I noticed doors ajar, and the air felt thicker, almost suffocating. I turned to my left and saw a flicker of movement. I squinted, and there it was again, an old patient chart pinned on a nearby wall. It seemed odd that it hadn't been taken down, but I had to see it. I approached cautiously. The chart was faded, but it displayed a name, Sarah Whitmore. The details were sparse. Just a birth date and a series of procedures listed, abruptly cut off. My gut twisted. I felt like I had stepped into the past, unwillingly. At that moment, A noise echoed behind me, a scraping sound followed by the soft sobs of a woman. Panic washed over me and I whipped around. "Hello?" I called out, my voice shaky and no response. Suddenly, the lights flickered, their glow dimming even further. My breath quickened. I didn't want to be here. Every instinct screamed at me to run. But this pull, the mystery of Sarah, kept me rooted in place. With shaky hands, I pulled out my phone, intending to record my thoughts, my fears. But before I could speak, a shadow darted across my field of vision. I turned, heart racing, just in time to see the nurse again, this time standing beside the door at the far end of the hallway. Her face looked more desperate, her mouth moving, but no sound came out. "Wait," I shouted, but she only shook her head slightly before disappearing through the door. I hesitated, torn between the darkest corners of my mind and the burning desire to find out the truth. The door stood ajar, an invitation or a warning. I took a deep breath and approached it. As I reached for the handle, I felt a buzz of static in the air. The recording device in my pocket vibrated. In my gut, I sensed that whatever lay beyond that door was tied to the strange happenings of this night. And to Sarah, I was close to the answer or a nightmare. Then the lights flickered again, and everything went dark. I was swallowed by the night, alone in the silence. The darkness was thick. I stood frozen, my heart pounding in my chest. I strained my ears, listening for any sound, any indication that I wasn't truly alone. Then I heard it, a faint whisper. It was too soft to make out, but it always seemed to come from the direction of that ajar door. I couldn't just stand there. My curiosity won out over my fear. I took a hesitant step forward, reaching for the door. It felt cool under my fingers as I pushed it slowly open. The hinges creaked, and I braced myself for what lay beyond. The room was dim, illuminated only by the emergency exit light casting an eerie glow. I looked around, feeling like I had crossed into a realm where time had stopped. Medical equipment lay scattered, forgotten. Monitors blinked with a dull rhythm, their screens filled with static instead of data. Then I saw her, a shadowy figure hunched over in the corner. My breath hitched. I wanted to call out, to ask if she was okay, but something kept me silent. The woman's head lifted ever so slightly, and in that moment, I caught the glimmer of tears on her cheeks. It was Sarah. Her mouth moved again, and though no sound escaped, I could almost read the desperation in her eyes. "Help me," the look pleaded. Suddenly, the recording device buzzed in my pocket, and a familiar voice echoed in the room. "Sarah, don't go, please." My skin prickled at the realization I wasn't just experiencing these events. I was recording them, torn between the compulsion to help and my instinct to flee. I took a cautious step toward her. "Sarah?" I called out, but my voice sounded like a distant echo in the stagnant air. At that moment, the lights flickered back to life, illuminating the room fully. But it wasn't the warm glow I hoped for. The fluorescent lights buzzed harshly, casting sharp shadows that twisted around us. Sarah flinched, and I noticed the scars on her arms, a story etched deep into her skin. "Why are you still here?" I asked, my voice trembling. What had bound her to this place? Her lips parted. "They took everything," she whispered. The sadness in her voice gripped me. I needed to know what she meant. But before I could ask, a noise erupted behind me, a crashing sound that rattled the very walls. I spun around, panic surging through me as I caught sight of the nurse, her face twisted in anguish, standing at the doorway. She was no longer silent. "Leave," she screamed, her voice full of terror. A deep instinct kicked in. I didn't know who to trust, the pleading figure of Sarah or the frantic nurse desperate to push me away. My heart pounded faster. The room felt smaller, the shadows closing in. Then everything went dark again, but this time I heard it, a soft, echoing voice. "You shouldn't have come here." As the darkness enveloped me, I felt the cold grip of fear tighten around my throat. I was trapped in a nightmare of my own making, and I had no idea how to escape. I could barely breathe in the pitch-black room. A wave of dizziness washed over me. I stretched my hand out, searching for something solid to hold on to. Panic began to creep in as memories of the nurse's scream replayed in my mind. I wasn't alone, and something desperate had driven her to such fear. Suddenly, the darkness receded as a sliver of light appeared, illuminating the edges of the doorframe. It flickered like a candle, barely cutting through the gloom. I felt a rush of adrenaline. I needed to get out, but my feet seemed glued to the spot. "Sarah!" I shouted into the void, hoping she could hear me. I felt foolish. Why was I risking everything for someone who might not even be real? I pushed forward, the desire to help overpowering the urge to run. As I edged closer to the light, I caught sight of Sarah again. She was standing now, and her features became clearer, eyes wide with a mix of fear and hope. "Please," she murmured, her voice shaky but determined. "You have to listen." "I'm listening. What happened to you?" I took another step, the light growing stronger, illuminating the gruesome scars that ran along her arms. They looked fresh, as if she had just emerged from something horrifying. A low howling noise erupted from the far corner of the room, freezing me in place. I could barely focus. My thoughts were muddled. That sound, it felt alive, pressing against my skin. Sarah's expression turned grave. "It's here," she whispered, her eyes darting toward the shadows. Before I could respond, the nurse's anguished face appeared in the doorway again, flaring with rage and panic. She lunged at me, arms reaching out like claws. "Get out!" she screamed. "You don't understand." My mind raced, caught between conflicting urges. I had to leave, but Sarah needed help. An overwhelming urge to choose finally gripped me. I moved backward, towards the door, but I resisted the instinct to run. "Why are you both here?" I asked, my voice trembling. "What do I need to know?" The air shifted, a sinister presence making itself known. I could feel it, an icy touch that scraped against my back. I could hear it breathing, slowly wrapping around me. "They'll take you too," Sarah said, her gaze frantic. "You have to go now." The room shuddered, and everything felt wrong. My recording device buzzed again in my pocket, and I fumbled to pull it out. "I can document this, I can," but then everything changed. A sudden force slammed into my chest, driving me back against the wall. The lights flickered violently, casting disjointed shadows that danced across Sarah's face. In that moment, I saw the truth, the terror that had tethered her here. When I saw it, I gasped. A figure materialized in the darkness, its face obscured but unmistakably malevolent, eyes glowing like embers. Panic ignited in my veins, and I turned toward the door, my heart racing. "No!" I screamed, the weight of dread propelling me forward. I had to escape before it consumed me too. The door resisted as I pushed against it. It felt heavy, like it was trying to hold me back. If I didn't get out now, I feared I'd be trapped forever. I forced it open, the hinges creaking, and stumbled into the hallway. The dim light from the emergency exit sign flickered ahead, pulsing like a warning. "Sarah!" I called again, desperate to keep her with me. The howling noise followed, sounding closer, echoing off the walls. I glanced back to see her face filled with panic, the shadows swallowing her just as quickly as they revealed her. I sprinted down the corridor, every footfall echoing. I turned corners without thinking, my breaths coming sharper with each stride. My mind raced to make sense of it all. Sarah was here. But why? And that figure? Was it the same one the nurse had seen? I reached the main hospital lobby, and the stark fluorescent lights clicked on, blinding me momentarily. I paused, my breath hitching in my throat. A chill slithered down my spine. The silence pressed down on me, a serious reminder of how alone I truly was. The nurse's station stood deserted, papers scattered like they'd been abandoned in a hurry. My recording device buzzed again, as if sensing my unease. I glanced at the screen. It was still operational. If I could document something, anything, maybe it would help. "Damn it! I can't leave without knowing what's going on," I muttered. I noticed a door marked supply room. It was slightly ajar. Without thinking, I pushed it wide open and stepped inside. The shelves were filled with medical supplies, bandages, syringes, boxes of gloves. But in the corner, Something caught my eye. A bruise-colored notebook lay open on an overturned chair. I grabbed it, flipping through the pages frantically. Handwritten scrawls filled the pages, a jumble of thoughts, references to patients, and most alarmingly, scribbles about apparitions. The wandering souls, one line read, "They take what they want." Suddenly, the door slammed shut behind me. I whipped around, heart hammering. There was no handle on the inside. I was trapped. No, no, no. I banged on the door, panic bubbling back to the surface. Voices echoed from the hallway, muffled and distorted, like whispers carried on the wind. My recording device vibrated violently in my hand. I realized I had to get out before whatever was out there found me. I stepped back from the door, searching for an escape route. That S when I saw it. From one of the high shelves, a shadow detached itself, a small figure. It hung there, motionless, just above my head. My breath caught in my throat. My vision sharpened, and I could make out the silhouette, a child, with hollow eyes staring right through me. "Help us," it whispered, the voice echoing in my mind. "Get away," I yelled, backing toward the wall once more, unsure of what to expect next. I pressed my back against the cold wall as the child's voice lingered in my mind. I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever this was, it wasn't here to help me. The figure shifted slightly, its head tilting as if it was trying to gauge my fear. "Help us," it repeated, the words dripping with sorrow and desperation. "Who are you?" I shot back, my voice trembling. "What do you want?" The child remained silent, just staring, and for a moment, the world around me faded. My thoughts raced. Was this some sort of spirit? An echo of innocence lost? Screams behind the walls reminded me of the harsh reality I was trapped in. I had to focus. I scanned the supply room for another way out. There had to be something. I spotted a small window high on the far wall, barely big enough for a person to squeeze through. The frame was dusty, cobwebs tangled in the corners. My heart raced as I tiptoed sideways, trying to step around the child while not provoking it further. "Please, just let me go," I whispered, glancing back at the empty door. The whispers from the hallway echoed louder now, a chorus of unsettling murmurs that threw my thoughts into chaos. Unsure of how much time I had before whatever was lurking outside made its way in, I reached for a nearby box and climbed onto it, stretching for the window. The child's voice turned sharp. "You can't leave," it cried, the hollow eyes now filled with a shadowy intensity. I froze. It wasn't just a plea. It felt like a warning. My instinct screamed at me to jump down, but I was so close that I wrenched the window open, the metal frame groaning in protest. "Come on," I urged myself. "You have to get out." I was about to heave myself up when the supply room lights flickered and went out, enveloping me in darkness. "Get away," I shouted again, gripping the frame of the window. Panic surged through me as I felt the floor shift beneath me. I needed to escape, but the fear of what was behind me kept me rooted in place. In the pitch blackness, I heard a soft cooing sound, then the unmistakable patter of tiny feet running toward me. My heart sank. I didn't want to know what was creeping closer. It was too late to turn back. I vaulted upward, tossing myself toward the window just as a cold touch brushed my shoulder. I screamed. The sensation was like ice, sending shockwaves through me. My fingers slipped from the sill, and I felt myself pitching backward. Crash! I hit the floor, landing hard and gasping for breath. The moment I opened my eyes, the child stood over me, its face inches from mine, a twisted smile stretching across its features. "Now you'll help us," it whispered. Before I could react, a blinding light flickered in the room. Suddenly, everything vanished: the child, the whispers, even the shadows. I blinked, bewildered. Where was I? A strange wave of calm washed over me, staving off the panic for now. But a new sound filled the air, a soft, rhythmic tapping. My heart sank again as I realized it was coming from the supply room door. Someone was trying to get in. I pressed my ear against the door. The tapping grew more urgent, like someone was trying to make themselves heard. "Hello?" I called, my voice barely more than a whisper. The sound stopped for a moment, leaving an eerie silence hanging in the air. I waited, holding my breath, hoping for a response. Then I heard a faint voice muffled by the door. "Help please." It was the same child's voice, but it sounded distant, like a haunting echo. My heart raced again. I couldn't get a read on what was real anymore. "Is someone out there?" I asked, my voice shaky. "Are you okay?" The tapping resumed, this time in rapid succession. I stepped back, the fear creeping over me like a dark fog. Whatever was on the other side didn't sound like it was in good shape. I cursed under my breath. I couldn't just leave them. I stepped back toward the window again, hoping the light wouldn't flicker out this time. If I could just get out, I could get help. I grabbed the metal sill, trying to hoist myself back up when the door suddenly slammed open. I stumbled backward, landing awkwardly on the floor. A figure stepped into the room, a nurse. "What are you doing here?" she gasped, eyes wide with shock. I blinked, caught off guard. "I was trapped," I stammered. "There's something in here, or someone." I pointed to the door, expecting the child to walk in, but nothing followed. The nurse frowned, glancing back at the doorway. "What do you mean? There's no one here." "No, I heard it, this child's voice," I insisted. But even as I said it, doubt crept in. Was it just my imagination? "We have to go." The nurse stepped forward, her voice firm. "You're not supposed to be here. You should have left when the shift changed." "Left? I can't just leave," I shouted, panic rising. "You don't understand. There's something wrong in this place." She shook her head, her expression unreadable. "You need to calm down. It's just your mind playing tricks. This area is off limits. You need to." Before she could finish, the lights flickered again, casting strange shadows around us. A chill swept through the room, and I felt the weight of something unseen pressing in. The nurse gasped, staring into the corner of the room where the shadows seemed to dance. "Did you see that?" I asked, my voice trembling. But before she could reply, the child's voice returned, louder and clearer. "Help us!" cried from the darkness. The nurse's face blanched. "We need to go now," she shouted, turning toward the door, but it slammed shut in her face. Desperately, she rattled the knob, but it held firm. Everything spiraled into chaos. I stammered out some words, trying to make sense of what was happening, but all I could focus on was the cold grip of fear clawing at my insides. "I can't help this," I thought as I backed away, watching shadows creep closer. When I saw it, tiny footsteps forming in the dust on the floor, leading directly to where the nurse had just been. The last remnants of my sanity screamed for escape, but as darkness enveloped the room, I knew it was only the beginning. My heart pounded as I processed what was happening. The tiny footsteps in the dust weren't just illusions. They were real. I crouched down, barely breathing, tracing the patterns with my eyes. They led to the nurse, who was still frantic at the door. "Look," pointed, my voice urgent. But when she glanced, the footprints vanished like smoke in the wind. I felt a wave of dread wash over me. "This place isn't right." The nurse swiveled back, leaning against the door, her voice trembling. "You're not making any sense. We have to get out." I could see her resolve wavering, but there was no way to explain what I was feeling. It was as if the air around us thickened, heavy with unseen eyes watching, waiting. I could hear the faint whispers again, swirling through the room like a breeze. "Help us please." Suddenly, another chill swept through, and the lights flickered low. My stomach dropped. "We need to find a window," I urged, looking around for any possible escape. The nurse hesitated, glancing at the shadows creeping along the walls. "I can't just leave the door." She seemed divided, trapped between fear and duty. Then, through the growing haze of dread, I noticed something on the floor. A name tag, half buried under dust. "Sarah," it read, along with a date that made me shiver. 2017. That's not right," I muttered. The hospital had been closed for years, but right before the closure, I had heard whispers of strange occurrences. Staff disappearing, children's voices echoing in the halls. A story I had tried to disregard. "Did you say something?" the nurse asked, her eyes darting to the name tag. When this place was functional, some children went missing, I replied, hesitating to share the rumors that had once seemed ridiculous. They said they could still be here. The nurse paled further, but before she could respond, the temperature dropped rapidly. What the hell is going on? She gasped. We both turned as the shadows in the corner began to coalesce into shapes, small figures. I in horror. I gasped. It's them. Stop it. You're scaring me, she shouted, pressing her back harder against the door as if it could shield her. Just then, one of the shapes took a step forward. Help please! A flicker of a face appeared, the eyes wide and pleading. I could make out a child, no, more than one. Whatever sanity I thought I had left unraveled. No, I yelled. We need to get out. I threw myself at the window, frantically trying to pry it open. I couldn't stay here. My mind raced as I feared we might be next. That S when I felt a tug at my shirt from behind. I spun around to see the figures inching closer, their small hands reaching out. Help us. Please, they echoed again, voices growing louder, overlapping like a chorus of despair. The last remnants of courage disappeared as I realized we were no longer alone. Something had awakened in this cursed place, and it wanted us too. My heart raced with a visceral panic. I had to find a way out before it was too late. I turned back to the nurse, desperation in my eyes. We have to go. Now. But as I shouted those words, everything went dark. I jolted awake, my body unapologetically heavy with dread. The darkness was thick, wrapping around me like a clammy blanket, stifling any sound. I could barely remember what had happened. My thoughts a jumble of shadows and whispers. Disoriented, I blinked against the darkness, straining to piece together reality as my eyes adjusted. Faint light trickled in, casting an eerie glow around the room. Inching away from the wall, I felt something cold brush against my arm. Instinctively, I recoiled, heart hammering. Was it the shadows again? I wasn't alone. The nurse lay on the floor near the door, her face pale and eyes tightly shut. Hey, I called, shaking her gently. A shuddering breath escaped her, and her eyelids fluttered open. Fear etched across her features as she fully registered our surroundings. What happened? She gasped, scrambling to sit up. We need to get out, I insisted, glancing around. The room felt different now. The shadows seemed deeper, thicker. The stillness was almost suffocating, filled with an unsettling energy. Where are the kids? She whispered, her voice trembling. The memories flooded back. They were here. They wanted help. Enough with this. We need to leave. She tried to push herself up. Wait, pulled her back. What if they're still here? Warm dread clung to my spine. The stillness was suddenly punctuated by a soft, echoing giggle, and both of us froze. The sound spiraled through the air, both familiar and foreign, and for a brief moment, I thought it was just my mind playing tricks on me. But then I realized it was growing louder. Did you hear that? I asked, holding my breath. The nurse's eyes were wide. Yeah, the children. Where are they? The panic swelled in my chest. Over there. She pointed toward the corner, and the shadows in the room began to shift, undulating as if something was pushing through. In that moment, the temperature dropped again, sharper this time. My breath misted in front of me. We have to go now. I grabbed her hand, pulling her toward the window I had tried to open before. The nurse hesitated. What if we can help them? You think they need help? Look at what they did. I shouted, the shadows morphing into smaller figures. Their faces emerged in the dim light, their eyes alight with urgency and fear, fingers stretching toward us. Please help us, they urged. My heart sank. This isn't what it seems. They're trapped here. Just as we reached the window, a loud thud echoed through the room. The walls seemed to pulse with energy. The figures faltered, darkness swirling around them. I turned, gut instinct screaming that something was wrong. Then I saw it. A tall figure, shrouded in shadows, lurking just beyond the small group of children. Its eyes glowed with an unnatural light, staring directly at us. Run! I screamed, adrenaline surging as I yanked the window open with all my strength. The cold air rushed in, filled with a mix of freedom and danger. But it was too late. The tall figure lifted a hand, a sense of dread washing over me as it spoke in a cold, whispering voice, "You cannot escape." And just like that, the darkness closed in once more. The air felt thick with apprehension as I stumbled backward through the window, desperation propelling me through. The chill cut against my skin, but I didn't dare look back. I landed hard on the ground outside, scrambling to regain my footing. The eerie glow of the hospital windows flickered just above me like an eye watching my every move. I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever shadow I had escaped was still looming nearby. "Hey, you can't leave," the nurse's voice called out behind me. I turned just in time to see her trapped inside the window frame, panic etched across her face. The darkness seemed to reach for her, fingers curling around her like smoke. "No, go," I shouted, unwilling to abandon her, but knowing I had to prioritize my survival. "Get out of there." I could see her struggle against the suffocating shadows pulling at her. "Help me," she screamed, but then her voice warped into a haunting echo. My heart pounded as the memories of the children filled my mind, their hollow eyes, their desperate cries. I exposed myself to something deeper, darker, more terrifying than I could bear. In that moment, I knew I couldn't help her. I had to keep moving. Darting away from the hospital, I sprinted toward the street. The cool night air felt like liberation against the weight of what I had just witnessed. A few blocks away, I finally slowed my pace, leaning against a lamppost to catch my breath. I looked back. The hospital loomed, the windows dark and silent, but somewhere in those shadows, I could feel eyes on me watching, waiting. That night changed everything. I quit my job the next day. The unease that burrowed deep into my chest refused to fade. I replayed the recordings I had captured, but all I found were echoes of static and disembodied whispers. The urgency of Sarah's plea fading into mere sounds. I moved out of the neighborhood. The old hospital was inevitably demolished, but I knew deep down that the stories didn't end there. I still think about the nurse caught in shadows, the children's desperate cries, and the terror that I felt. I can't shake the questions that linger every time I pass a building with peeling paint or flickering lights. What truly happened to Sarah? What about the other voices? Were they just figments of my mind or something more? I guess I'll never know. The chilling memories remain, a reminder of the darkness lurking beneath the surface. Sometimes I wonder what more I could have done, but these silent reflections are the price I pay for my curiosity. And now it's enough to keep me awake at night.